Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program. Hello and welcome to another dose of Subscription Prescription. I'm your host, Matthew Holman, and this is the podcast where we talk about everything related to D2C subscriptions. I'm really excited to be diving into today's topic. We're going to be talking about email as it relates to subscriptions, memberships, all kinds of things related to driving up recurring revenue. I'm excited to welcome to the show, Josh Tay. Josh, thanks for coming on.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's been a while. We've been connected for years. Been seeing your stuff, been commenting on your stuff. You've been commenting on my stuff, but we never actually got to meet proper. So super excited to get on this.
No, absolutely. So for a little bit of context, for those of you that aren't following Josh on LinkedIn, I highly recommend. He drops lots of really insightful posts going over strategies and everything. And that is one of the things that kind of like caused, I think, spurred some of our re-engagement the last few months. Josh is currently the VP of Strategy and Fulfillment at Kronos Agency, but has also led retention at Common Thread Co., as well as No Limit Email. So Josh, you've been in the email game for a long time. I think one of the great ways, just starting things off or kind of as a general discussion, how do you think about email when it comes to subscription brands? Because there's email strategies for your typical fashion brand and others, which we are going to dive a little bit more into, but what do you see some of the common mistakes, opportunities, or how are you thinking about email strategy with subscriptions?
That's a very good question because I actually don't like that question. In particular, because I feel like the email conversation and thinking about subscriptions and everything in the context of email is probably the wrong way to look at things to begin with. If you're thinking about the biggest levers and what makes the biggest impact, it's offers, right? On subscriptions,
Right.
Offers, a good offer is always the one that gets most people in. So there are two ways you can think about it. Number one is the front end offer. How do we get more people onto this? How do we grow the subscription customer base? Number two is how do we retain people on the same on the subscription program? And number three is how do we get people to add more product lines, right? To subscribe to new subscriptions within the same subscription program. So they will still be considered an active subscriber, right? But now they have two subscription lines. So now that makes the person even more available. So email actually plays a very small role in the grand scheme of things. Everything else actually needs to start from the subscription app. So you can look at that. You can look at your core analysis. You can look at your product journey analysis. You can look at time between orders. You can look at your first time customer repurchase rate. You can look at a repeat customer repurchase rate. Look at the different cohorts of specific products, right? And which ones drive higher LTV, which bundles drive higher LTV. There's so many things that make so much of a bigger role. And then after that, we think about, okay, so how do we actually use the email or the SMS in order to impact that? So the email and SMS are it's like a secondary effect because there's so many other things that can be done, right? Might not even be anything to do with the email.
Yeah, no, I love that. And because, as you're saying that, it makes me think of like a common strategy that we're employing lately with, say, on canceled subscribers is not so much thinking about like some of the timing and are we going to trigger based off of reasons somebody canceled, but it's actually just, you need to be thinking about offer, like what offer strategies are going to get somebody to re-engage and come back. And so when you think about that in that context, though, is like, how do you view, though, the idea that, say, potentially some brands don't like sending emails to subscribers, right? So like if you're saying like, hey, high level offer is the most important thing to focus on, which I love and completely agree. Email's a huge like channel to be able to offer that, right? Because not everybody sees a subscriber portal, right? Not everybody necessarily gets emails or SMS, depending. How do you approach that when a brand pushes back and saying, hey, that's a great offer idea, but we don't like emailing subscribers because we're worried about churn?
When people not liking to email subscribers, that is probably an opinion, right? It's an opinion. It might not actually be data. So if you just look at that,
I think sometimes, though, it is data in the sense of they see, hey, we sent out an email campaign and we saw a spike in churn that day. Like I do think they're looking at data, but I think they're often only looking at like a single data point. They're not looking at big picture. But
yeah, I mean, it could be causation, or correlation,
Mhm.
right? And then we got to
Right.
differentiate both of them, because if we conflate those, then we just make very erroneous decisions, right? It can be very drastic. So, I mean, not wanting to email people, I think that's just fine if your offers are really good and you know that you have already a very strong customer base that keeps coming back. I know of brands who are extremely engaged with their customer base on organic social. If that works,
Right.
cool, right? Then if you really don't need email, that's fine. You gotta find what works for you at the end of the day. But yes, I mean, emails are still easy to reach people, but it's at the end of the day, it's a communication channel.
Yeah, no, it's interesting too though, because like you get when you mention organic social, an issue we often run into is, hey, say you want to run a special offer, but you don't want existing subscribers to know about it. If you post it on social, then anybody that
Mm,
follows you is going to hear about it. If you're not using email to say like one-time purchasers in the past, you're missing out on that. Although, I mean, technically, you're not technically emailing subscribers. So, when you talk about offers that way, like how do you structure approach that? Is it thinking about like that upfront initial offer? Does the offer after the fact change? Like is the offer that's sitting on the I'll get more specific with my question. Is the offer that you're seeing on the say product page or landing page going to be different from what you're potentially offering somebody that bought one time and you're trying to upsell them to another subscription? Or do you differentiate between the strategy you have in those two offers?
mm. Before I answer this question, I just want to touch on whatever you mentioned before, like, which is related
Oh,
to
yeah.
what I said, right? It's like you might not want to just focus on email, and if you just focus on organic social, how are you gonna have that like? And if you post online, it means that everyone else gets that. So one of the other ways would just be, and I use way back in the day, I used to build chatbots. I used to build chatbot funnels, and we hook it up with Meta, and you can pretty much
Yeah.
send your
Many chats still live and strong. So yeah.
Yep, yep. I'm still a big fan. I have all the merch. I'm still a fanboy. Yeah, but I mean, you can still send broadcasts, right? You can send broadcasts on IGDMs. You can send your broadcasts on Messenger, and I mean that works. That could also be a
Mm.
secondary channel. I mean, you also have WhatsApp, and all of that are now. I think with the latest integration with Klaviyo's also recently launched theirs. I honestly haven't tested it before, but I mean, feel free to. But there's also that's an opportunity, right? If you know
Mhm.
that your customers are engaged on organic social, try something that is aligned with that. To answer your next question, which is whether the offer on PDP is different from what you're offering for people who buy one time. Two ways which you can do that. So obviously you want to have different offers for returning customers and to upsell them versus new customers. But like front end offers and back end offers, right? That is it's a very simple thing that you can do, and you can customize your offers, and you can do streaks in offers. So it depends on how much what you're playing with and what margins you have. So, and what a priority is right now. Is your priority customer retention, right? Or is a priority growing the subscription base from first order? Or is your priority upselling people from a one-time order? Because all three of those will result in a very different strategy throughout. And sometimes if you look at their funnel conversion rates, it might not actually make sense for you to try to upsell someone after they made a one-time order. Right? And
Mhm.
there is probably a reason why the person decided to make a one-time order and not subscribe to begin with. I mean, if let's say you know that you already have a good offer, for example, you have a standard 15% off subscribe and save, and they don't want to take the 15% off, and they decide that they still want to just do a full price to pay one time, and you see the natural progression in the product journey is that people still make another one-time order. Then the question for us is not about how do we get this person to come back again, because theory tells us that, oh, if a person has made two orders, they are likely to be a fan, right? They're likely to be a fan, and they'll come back again because they are loyal. But that's one way to you think about it. But the other logical way is like, they made two one-time orders. They probably just don't want to be in a subscription. Then do you want to
Mhm.
force people to get on a subscription program, or just want to let them be? Right?
Right.
Then that is thinking about the customer journey versus the company journey. So are we trying to fight the wave
Yeah.
and swim against the current for the sake of it?
You're spot on because I mean, I personally think that subscriptions are just a mechanism for enabling repeat purchases, right? There,
Yeah.
it does feel like the holy grail sometimes for some brands, and obviously the name of this podcast and now all that I do is subscriptions. However, if I knew there was a better way to drive repeat revenue, I would no longer be the subscription doc. So I love that you're saying that. It's really interesting too because you're breaking down like how people should be thinking about their funnels, and I'm thinking about myself as a consumer. I buy sleep gummies from this brand. They have a subscription offer. I don't want to have a subscription. I just order when I'm getting low because I know how long it takes to get it. It's actually really easy. I don't mind it. But you mentioned a couple other examples. So, like, just to kind of break this down, like a little bit of maybe reflective listening, because of what you're saying is like, hey, if we have a really good take rate, we don't necessarily need to be super aggressive on subscription offers to people that haven't taken it, or maybe we just leave them alone and try to figure out what that subgroup might actually need if they want education or engagement, or we just leave them alone. Okay, so I like that. And you're thinking about the different strategies. If we're trying to be really aggressive in acquiring subscribers, we're going to be really aggressive with our offer, right? This comes back to your central theme of offer testing. But you mentioned something very interesting out of some of those examples. You said, hey, if we're worrying about improving retention, how would you think about an offer? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if I'm just trying to grab subscribers, I'm going to be really aggressive on discounting or maybe like a 2 for 1 or something like that to try to grab more subscribers. But if I'm worried about retention, I'm probably not going to do that because I don't want to get discount seekers in the funnel. Is that kind of what you mean? Or would you mind unpacking that a little bit more? What type of offer would we be thinking about if we're worrying about improving retention?
Yeah. That's actually a loaded question because and I and I always fight back on all these things because it comes back to one fundamental question, which is why do we even want to have people on the subscription program? And what's the
Right.
purpose? What is the business outcome that we're trying to achieve here?
We usually feel like we lock in LTV is the general ways. It's like a
Yeah,
predictive locked in, even though it's really not LTV
yeah,
because it's still just made up of a bunch of averages of people over time, first month, second month, third month renewal rates. So yeah.
yeah. So I mean, locking in the LTV and trying to grow and increase this LTV, that is actually not the fundamental reason why you have a lot of repeat purchases anyway. Right? It's not
Okay.
for the sake of profitability, like profit for the sake of profit, and you keeping all that profit. That's not a wise way to grow your business, right? The reason why we want to maximize the amount of LTV that we have is so that we can afford to spend more to acquire a customer. Is so that we can afford
Mm-hmm.
to increase our bids and outbid all our competitors. So that's the sole reason for increasing this LTV. But at some point, like, do we really need to? At this point, like, is this the most important thing for us to do? Is this the best use of our resources and our focus? Because yes, you can focus on trying to increase this LTV, but we have a lot of other problems at the same time,
Right.
right? So we've got, yeah,
Right.
so like what we talked about at the beginning. Do we want to increase the subscription base? So we want to have an offer there, and then how much of the offer depends on what this cohort's LTV to CAC is, and what's the
Right.
marginal frontier here. Then the second one is if we want to reduce first to second order drop off rates. This is a different strategy, right? Then we want to have a different offer here, right? Do we need to have a starter kit on our PDP and also show that you can have a free gift on second order, right? And have that on your PDP and show people the value of the free gift. And then you have
Right.
your emails and your SMSs letting people know and all that kind of stuff, the customer portal. That's the same playbook, right? Is that the key? Or is it to actually reduce the drop offs from order 3 to order 4? And why do we need to reduce the drop offs from order 3 to order 4? Are we still not profitable at that point? I would think that you are, right? So then is this really the priority, the main thing that we need to focus on? Or is there some other thing that we need to focus on? Is it,
Mm-hmm.
are we trying to encourage product discovery and catalog penetration? What is it that we are trying to do? Because there are a lot of different things. And I think
Right.
if people think too micro on a subscription program and they're like, there's so many variables and so many things
Yeah.
that make the business profitable, so many other things that you can do, not just focusing on the standard stuff that are linked to the email program, which is what
So
we are too siloed about.
yeah, no, it's so interesting because I'm starting to feel like I know you worked at Common Thread for a while, and I'm starting to feel some of that like philosophy come through in what you're saying, which is it's so ironic that it feels like a unique voice in the wilderness kind of thing. Like it's which is how are you growing profitably, not what how are you acquiring customers or what does your LTV look like? It's actually like thinking about the different levers you can use to grow profitably, and is this growth in this way worth it, depending on
Hmm.
like what that impact could be, because sometimes growth can kill your business, right? And if we're acquiring people and profit. I'd really love that kind of like the direction that you're saying that. So let me kind of like switch gears just a little bit, because there's some of the things that you're saying is like, so you again, your background is in retention. You've worked on email, but you're talking a ton about like acquisition offers and like understanding the cost to acquire a customer, which is how I like to think about it. And I think that's really smart. However, a lot of brands out there have siloed departments, right? They have a head of retention who's just really in charge and repeat purchase rates and that kind of recurring revenue. You've got a growth team that's trying to hit a number. Sometimes there's collaboration, sometimes there isn't. And in your experience, how do you break down some of those barriers? How do you like the point you just made about making the find like all the nuance and finding what you should be doing? For any brand out there that is growing and that is maybe has a bit of disconnect, how would you speak to somebody like that about how they should be incorporating their growth and retention teams, or is just a founder thinking about growth so that it is feels more profitably with what you've been saying?
Yeah. To answer the question, it comes down to something that's very simple, right? Is what is growth to you, and what does success mean to you in the next 1 year, or 2 years, or 3 years? And then you alter your departments accordingly. Your departments have to talk. That's the only way that things can be done. Otherwise, it's gonna be like you said, like a silo. And if it's siloed, then you both have your own KPIs, and both you're running at something that's completely different, and doesn't fuel anything, because if you have different KPIs, you will game the system in your own ways, whether
Right.
intentionally or non-intentionally. Right? You can say, "Oh, we want to increase repeat purchase rates." Yeah, I can game repeat purchase rates for all I want. It might not be profitable, or I might be too profitable at the expense of growth. Then did I win? Yeah. But did the brand win? No, not really.
Right. So creating like universal KPIs that everybody's rolling up into is one way to think about that, like maybe
Mhm.
general strategy meetings. So, we're talking a little bit about subscriptions here. I'm just kind of curious, like any trends you're seeing, other trends you're seeing in the space as it relates to subscriptions, memberships, anything related to repeat purchases. What's something fascinating you're seeing going on out in the e-commerce space right now?
Yeah. Something that's fascinating is the world realizing how lucrative subscriptions are, and verticals that aren't natively consumable, not the typical CPG, also trying to
Hmm.
pivot and introduce new ways in which they can get MRR.
Right.
So apparel brands and fashion brands have been. I've worked with two actually, and we one of them was on a yearly membership program, and this is what we introduced. And one of them we tried a monthly membership program. One was for accessories, like this was earrings and jewelry for both kids and for adults. Another one was fashion, like clothing, women's clothing. So I'll talk about the first one first, which was memberships for this. And normally people wouldn't think about memberships for earrings, right? But it also comes, it is an element of exclusivity that you need to think about. And it's okay. So, first of all, obviously, you need to have regular drops. Novelty is always the reason why people come back. So, how can I
Right.
include an element of novelty plus exclusivity in this program? So, what we did is then to release 4 new items to these subscribers, and these subscribers only. So you have enamels, right? So these are fun stuff, and these never
Right.
exist in the world, and no one else in the entire world will ever have this. So you are the only ones. It becomes like a collector's item. So this becomes something that we launch and we run on a monthly basis. So you have a monthly fee and you pay a monthly fee to get access to this. At the same time, you
Right.
also have every single month you also have a subscription only, a member only discounts. And this because we also have 3 launches every month. So it means that if you have a 15% off, it also makes you eligible for all these other launches 15% off.
So so people get well, one, they're paying for access to products that they wouldn't otherwise get and that other people on the site can't get unless they're a member. But then they also get, like, is that like a site-wide discount or just a general discount that they can use at any time across?
Yeah.
Okay. So then there's some of that, like, that is a reward standpoint. I really like that strategy. It does feel like people are paying you to get first in line for to buy your
Yeah.
stuff. So it
Yeah.
feels like you're winning twice when you do that. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, every campaign that we do and every release that we have, it's a completely different discount code. Right? I mean, it's not
Mm.
dynamic or anything, but like the launch runs for anywhere between, like, obviously, like 1 day. Like by the next month, like we stop talking about the launch because by the next month we've got something completely new, right? But this discount code lasts for about 3 days. So these people have 3 days to take advantage of that. Then the discount code dies, and then the new launch comes in. New discount code gets released only to these subscribers for early access and all that kind of stuff. And then yeah, so on and so forth. So
Are you showing the people that are not members what they're missing out on, or like what members are getting? Like, is that part of the marketing mechanism as well?
once a week, sorry, once a month, we do have a membership push, and we feature 3 or 4 different items and say this is what you missed out, just
Okay,
to kind
I
of
like that.
tease it.
Yeah, because, like, are you familiar with BattleBox, with John
Yeah,
Roman's brand?
yeah,
One thing I love they do is they have like different tiers of boxes, but they'll do the unboxing for the biggest premium box because it includes all the smaller boxes in it. So every it doesn't matter what tier you're on, you see what the premium box is every month. And so you see
yeah,
what you miss out as part of their natural kind of like marketing motion, which is one of my favorite content plays. So I love that. So that's it sounds like the jewelry brand. You mentioned also a fashion brand that or an apparel brand
yeah,
that you've been working on with that too.
yeah. For the apparel brand, because like sometimes you don't have drops as regularly, so they do about
Mhm.
1 drop a month, and these are normally pretty big drops. It could be a brand collab, it could be a completely new design, completely new style. So because it's not as regular, it becomes a constraint. And then we look at the average time between orders for some of these people, and it's not short, right? It's anywhere between like 90 days to about 120 days that people come back. And the problem is that in our email engagement, right, what we see is that the engagement drop-offs happen drastically after the first 20 something days, 30 something days. People stop engaging. So then, like, you can send campaigns all you want, but then it might be hard to get people to come back. And we see revenue contribution being pretty low over there. So we now know that, and I mean, we've done our campaign breakdowns and stuff like that our audience breakdowns to see, and to know that people who get monetized the fastest need to get monetized within the first, I think it was like 6 days. So we need to push for this. And then for returning customers, new returning customers, it needs to be in the first like 30 days. So if people still don't engage after, and like maybe then we split our customer base up right into two. So now got new customers, and we've got also legacy customers, like old customers from a much longer period, and how we
Mhm.
reactivating them, getting them back over here. So we kind of hit a wall, and we just can't, like, the people who repurchase keep repurchasing, and we know that these are our loyal customers. I mean, typical RFM, our loyalists, and our champions. But we've also got a big chunk of people who are in the at risk segments, and for the people who are also, they just passed the modal time between orders, and no matter what
Right.
we do, we just can't get them back. So then now it's a much bigger conversation for us to have, because we know that product drives loyalty, product drives retention, not the emails and not the SMSs. So we got to go up
Right.
funnel and think about how else do we impact this, and how else can we actually get people excited and get people to want to come back more. And it's not for lack of interest in the products. It's just that people lose the hype pretty quickly.
Right.
So getting on like a membership program then works pretty well. And this is a conversation about brand collabs. Because if your dependency is on your product research and your development, your R&D, then is there a way in which you can leverage other brands to co-market at the same time? And if you know your customers well, and you know who they are shopping with, and you also you're good with your networking and you can form good partnerships, why not leverage each other's customer base? So then we launched a membership program. It's a yearly fee at about 1.5x of the typical AOV, because that's all we really need. So if
Okay.
the AOV, the AOV was about 150 plus, and we just like 1.5x that, right? This became a yearly fee that they paid, and we locked them in. In exchange, they get the full fee back in store credits. So we got all we needed, right? You front loaded some of the LTV.
Right. Yeah, you're basically just giving people the option to buy that upfront.
Mm,
Increases the amount that they spend. Yeah, I really like that play. That's one that I've seen a lot where the membership, it often feels like a, what's the word? It's a very clear no-brainer, because it's like, I did this for a supplement brand, I as a consumer, and it was like, hey, it's $100 for the membership. They give you like $75 in store credit, or maybe it was like actually $100 in store credit, and then you get free
mm,
shipping on every order, because normally they charge
yeah,
for shipping. And it's like, I was already thinking, because it's a supplement I was taking, I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna buy this a couple more times this year. Like, why why wouldn't I do this? It's like I'm putting free money in my pocket. It's kind of funny too. Like, I think if any time you can make the consumer think like, how are they making money with this? Like,
yeah,
it does feel like, okay, they're gonna go do it. It's like every time I get offered like to finance a new phone, I'm like, how are you guys making money here? Is it just on the interest? Because it seems like really, really value driven. So okay, so I really like this. So thinking about memberships, and again, everything you just shared is like within the framework of what else you've been talking about. It's thinking about the
yeah,
offer, but also thinking about the consumer that you have, understanding their behavior, what is driving them or not. And then is there a way to layer a subscription offer or a membership offer that enables that? So if somebody's coming in, maybe they're coming in a couple times a year and that's it, but that's still good for the brand. Hey, we can layer a membership offer on that, because that person's still going to see a lot of value. They're going to pay us up front, use that store credit.
hmm,
And the use of the apparel, drops are a huge thing. That's something we saw with Little Milk Bar. I think their membership is kind of, they've gone away with it now, but they're releasing these new, like, they release new cakes and baked goods all the time, and they did that same thing. It's like, hey, if you want to, you could subscribe to get early releases before anybody else does it. So if you're doing drops, you can think about that. I'm just kind of curious, as we're like looking at wrapping up. Like, you talk so much about offers. Are there any offers out there that you've seen on a brand, any type, that you thought was just really cool or compelling? Very open, broad question, but just thinking
yeah,
about offers, something maybe a little interesting or different that you're seeing perform right now.
yeah. I like welcome kits a lot. I'm a sucker for those things, right? So Bubs Naturals has a very
Mm,
good subscription offer. It's like a so they have, I think it's like some supplements, and then together with that you get a bottle, you get a cup, you get a bunch of stuff, right? And all these are complementary items that you use together with the supplements. I think that makes
right.
sense. And I mean, you state what the value is, and then you value stack. You stack them on top. Yeah, because like if you like a brand, and if you're probably gonna use it, then I'm pretty happy to promote it.
Do do you think that would work with like even just more basic supplements? Like, let's say I was buying turmeric for the first time or something like that. Because yes, like with matcha and some of these others, it makes sense. Like, it's this big, huge mixing experience. But
Yeah.
do you think that play would work with like general supplements, like doing a starter kit? Like, I mean, I have some ideas on that, but I'm just kind of curious what you'd see. Do you think the starter kit works with when you're selling more of an experience? Is it product driven? Like, how do you think about it?
Yeah, why not? I think that works great. Maybe let's just say you have creatine supplements or something,
Right.
then you just go put your mind in the mind of a gym bro. Right? What is a gym bro want? Does he need another shaker? Like, this is a natural thing that we all kind of gravitate towards, right? But like, do you really need another shaker? Probably not. Would I need a small bag though? Like, that's pretty cool,
Mm,
right? And do I need a big ass duffel bag? No, I don't. But will I appreciate a small pouch with a magnet that I can like slap on
yeah.
onto my bench?
Yeah.
I can put my phone in there. I can fit my shaker in there. Now I'm promoting your brand, right? You just need to put
Right.
a small logo there, and then I'm carrying it around. I can still carry and have everything in my life as per normal. I'm still carrying my duffel bag with all my gear, but now instead of putting my phone on the floor and dirtying it, let's slapping this on and it looks cool. And now people are talking to me about it. Cool.
Okay. Yeah, I love it. You just not only just got outside the box trying to think about the consumer, but you're also thinking about it in ways that like somebody actually might not only enjoy it, but that actually promotes like brand recognition, conversations and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
if
really,
you
really
have
cool.
that with a 6-month subscription bundle, that's a fantastic offer. I would very willingly pay that cost for that bag to get this person on a 6-month subscription. I
Mhm.
lock that in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like thinking about that, like what offers we can use to get people to commit longer versus not. I think is the right play too. Josh, thanks so much for coming on the show. I would love like give us a little bit of a plug about the work you're doing at Kronos. Obviously, I'll say we'll drop a link to your LinkedIn. But I'm just wondering like what's the best way for people to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing.
Yeah, the best way is just LinkedIn. I'm active
Okay.
there. I check my DMs all the time. Yeah, ask me any question. Happy to discuss it. Feel free to comment on my stuff. Challenge my posts. I'm always looking for people to challenge the way that I think. Um, I like being wrong
I know.
because then
Well,
that's how
we've
that's
had
how I
some
learn.
good we've had some good comments there, and I do say like I love how like my very first question of this interview, you're like, I actually don't like that question. I think this is the bigger problem, which I really love because it's like it does. I think you got into what was important because I'm the same way. Like I think we all need to be challenged. We're all not living the same life, having the same experiences. Like that's how we can get better and grow.
Yeah,
So thank you again for
everyone.
coming on the show, Josh. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. If everyone agrees with me, I might as well talk with ChatGPT. ChatGPT agrees with me as well.
Oh, that's a great question. That is a great question. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. This has been Subscription Prescription. Stay tuned to next Tuesday for another dose. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.